All right, good morning, everyone. So we're just about to roll the intro video. Hopefully, y'all are ready to see if Berachain is real or not. So we'll roll the intro video, then we'll bring up Small Cap, Dev Bear, and Smokey. Hitting play now.
GM Anon, welcome to today's episode of MarketCapping. Before we begin, I just wanted to remind you that I am not your mom, and nor are any of the speakers on this show. Nothing you hear today is financial advice. You should be a big kid now. Make your own decisions, do your own research, and assume every crypto coin you buy will result in complete losses. If you ever plan on holding anyone other than yourself responsible for your choices, please navigate to the top of your browser window where you'll find the friendly red close button. And now, let the episode begin.
Boom. All right, let's bring in the boys. Hey guys, can you hear me?
GM,
How's it
sir.
going?
GM, Smokey, Dev, you guys here? Boom. I think we got everyone.
Yes, sir.
Let's go. So, welcome to today's episode of Market Capping. This one's been in the works for a minute. I think all of crypto Twitter is still wondering, is Berachain real? So, why don't we start there and give us the hard truth?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. We're just gonna have to pack it up right here. Our
Oh
team is
man, I guess it's over.
cutting this episode short a little bit. No, jokes aside, Berachain is in fact real, and we've been heads down building some pretty exciting stuff for the last few months, making sure that we're ready to go for both the Bera and Bula markets. I think perhaps we'll hand over to Dev Bear, and he might be able to teach you guys the good way of Berachain.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Definitely give
yeah,
us a
let's
little
do it.
rundown. What
Yeah,
is
sounds
this
good.
thing?
So, yeah, it's a blockchain. It is blocks and stuff, So people, I guess, know that part. But outside of that, Bearchain, we took kind of our experience over the past year and realized that the Altel ones and that cycle had their problems, and we wanted to create something that we think solves a lot of those problems and creates a really great ecosystem for builders and degens of the like. So you can think of like Bearchain as kind of delegated proof of stake, but with like a wide variety of assets. So like if you have ETH lying around, if you have AVAX lying around, on any chain, you can bring it over and stake it with Berachain and earn rewards that way, block rewards for securing the network. But then additionally, the idea is that all of these assets that you're staking are then used to provide liquidity. So you get this nice double capital efficiency that we call it, where you have value that's being able to kind of flow through the network, but then also it's securing the chain. So you're tying together two really important aspects of any blockchain ecosystem and getting them to kind of work for each other.
Okay, let me say that back to you
Awesome.
really slowly, and then you can tell me if we're right or not. So, what
So
happens is there's this blockchain, and users they come along, and instead of validating blocks like in Ethereum, or instead of like in proof of stake, or instead of in proof of work, they come and put liquidity on chain and they stake it, and they get paid in the block rewards, which is basically the Bera tokens. And then the liquidity stays on the chain, and people can use that liquidity.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But instead of like providing an LP token like people are used to with like the Uniswap V2 style, you
Yeah.
actually only put up one side. And then that's
Oh,
where we have a bunch
No
of
IO.
yeah, I mean we can't say that exactly, but
I
the
can.
idea is that
I can push that narrative.
we've
That
been
makes
yeah, yeah,
sense.
you guys are allowed to, we're not.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea is that we wanted to kind of create a behavior that people are very used to. Your people are very comfortable, staking things, and it's something that people just know how to do. So if we can, create, a way for very typical user behavior to both, a provide liquidity and use the value of said liquidity to secure the chain, it's really good. And then what we do under the hood basically is when you deposit tokens, it gets paired with our native stablecoin Honey, which is effectively over collateralized, and then
okay.
everything goes through there.
And
Yeah, so you can
the
think of
honey
it as
is
like a hub and spoke.
collateralized by the assets I'm staking, right? So I show up and you say, "Oh, you can stake ETH for block rewards." I stake ETH. You take that ETH and you put it against Honey and ETH Honey LP, and you're saying the Honey is backed by the ETH on the other side of the LP, kind of like Frax, or there's some other way.
Effectively,
Okay, cool.
the way that you can kind of think about it is like honey that exists in a DEX, right? In our case, because of how it works, is not really honey that exists in the world, right? You can almost think of as this as like a kind of like a it's a market. So you can separate like the collateralization of honey based on like honey that is out in the world and then honey that is in our system. So
Mm-hmm.
honey that is in our system doesn't actually
Have value.
matter in terms
Yeah.
of collateralization because it doesn't technically exist. So I guess it's sort of collateralizing it in a way, but mathematically it kind of doesn't make a difference.
Right. Just like price. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you guys have been a quick one. Have you guys have been pretty mysterious? So will you tell us a little, like, real quick, a little bit about the team? And I guess like what really both of your roles are. And then like who's all working on Berachain now that we know it's real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a small group of us actually, and unfortunately, our third co-founder Papa is in the air at the moment, so we weren't able to grab him on for this one, but folks have heard him in the past. He does in fact exist. Um, quick backgrounds over here is that I spent most of my career, funnily, as did Papa, on the healthcare side of things and the VC side of things. We're both on, I'd say the deployment of capital and I guess both raising and selling funds. And then got into crypto first in 2017, 2018, rode that cycle, got back in I'd say the late 2020 timeframe. Actually, DCF dragged me back in, and we
Oh,
had some fun in the Olympus community before the Bears and so on and so forth existed. So I'd say that the Papa and I are both fairly involved on the BD slash ecosystem growth side of things. He's doing a lot of work on sort of the real world deals and integrating some pretty exciting stuff that doesn't exist at the moment on chain into the Berachain ecosystem. And I've been focusing a lot more on protocol development and basically getting folks building with Bera. And we've both known DevBear for the better part of the last decade, and I'll let him fill out his background.
Yeah, thanks, Smokey. So yeah, I come from a long-standing background in software engineering. Did my undergrad in that, and then spent a lot of time out in California in the Bay Area at various kind of large-scale tech companies, the FANG, if you will.
Let's go.
So I specialized in kind of low-level networking, and I was an OS engineer at a company for a while. So those skills kind of translated really nice into blockchain and getting involved with
yeah.
this technology over the past year or so. So yeah, that's
Nice.
kind of my spiel.
So
And I'd
recruiting
say
won't be an issue for you. You can just go poach all your ex-Fang colleagues.
Yeah, it's been it's been good. So having the network of peeps to draw from is definitely helpful.
Nice.
And the team is pretty rapidly expanding at the moment, and we'll probably give some shouts as to folks that we're looking at towards the end. But there's folks from the banking side of things. There's folks who've worked on compilers at IBM. There's folks who've worked on international trade deals, and then there's folks who have degen shitcoins. We have, I'd say, a good mix across the spectrum that allows us to balance the duality of trying to build a liquidity primitive, capital efficient ecosystem, and one that is built for both a native, a DeFi native, and retail crowd at the end of the day.
I love it. Okay, now back to the liquidity question. So we said before there's no IL, but I put up some ETH. I'm getting block rewards in Bera tokens, and the Bera number goes up. And that's because people put in Honey, the stablecoin, and bought my ETH. Now I go and unstake, but those people took the ETH and put Honey into the pool. How do you give me the same amount of ETH back?
Yeah, so the idea behind that is in addition to this whole basic the base system as we call it, there's also a perpetual exchange that's being built on top. So
Okay.
for this chain native DEX, we're utilizing technology built by the guys over at CrocSwap.
Oh,
And
let's
so that
go.
would be
Wow.
yeah. So we're integrating them. It's been those guys are gigabrain.
Yeah.
They're Doug knows
What is it? I'm not
Croc
familiar
Swap.
with them.
CrocSwap.
It's basically
Yeah,
like a
so
Uni
the
V3 competitor, but it's all one contract. And it's not the Uni V3 contracts. But so you get you get concentrated liquidity, but it's
Yeah,
heavily simplified.
that makes sense. I'll take a look.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Interesting.
And then it also gives the opportunity for Uni V2 as well. So you have XYK and then you also have concentrated in the same pool. So you don't have the bifurcation like you do on mainnet where you have your Uni V2 pools and your Uni V3 pools. It all can be wrapped into one pool. which is really nice and allows for, some use cases
Sweet.
to, benefit from that ambient style liquidity, perpetual exchanges being one of them. So having the tools and the way that CrocSwap is built allowed us to rapidly prototype and then, get to a production level state of a perpetual exchange with minimal work, which was really, really nice.
I
But to
see.
answer your question, DCF, basically what we can do is that you can kind of quantitatively look at everything and say, hey, if I'm providing liquidity, right, that is effectively a net short on that asset. Since we're the other side is an endogenous, it's something that we print, right? We're effectively short ETH when we're providing liquidity. So what we can end up doing is that we can, the chain as an entity and the algorithms that run it can go and say, hey, I need to net out this exposure somehow.
Oh,
And they can
wow.
do that by basically purchasing some sort of modestly leveraged, long future. And that's how you net out the exposure there. And then any funding rate that you're going to have to pay for that, you can, you can look at it and be like, hey, we're going to have, using historical data or kind of looking forward and doing some prediction stuff, you can be like, hey, we're going to have a net, red line on the balance sheet for, X amount of funding rate. So then you can create this world where, we see how much money is the chain making, what's the revenue of the chain from, DEX fees and staking and stuff, and then what are we going to have to pay in order to maintain that canceled out position, and we can basically figure out, okay, how leveraged long can we be, and how much exposure can we cancel out, in which case the chain is still profitable. And by tuning parameters and doing a bunch of things, you can create an embodiment where you're actually able to net out that effective short position while also handling any funding rate that you're paying via DEX fees and staking
Damn.
fees and stuff like that.
So, and the other thing will happen here is if you're basically shorting ETH and you're paying higher funding rates, then what will happen is the funding rate arbors will come long ETH on your chain. So just by doing that, you increase your own TVL, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other benefit of all this is it's all kind of, it adds a secondary peg mechanic as well for Honey, where because all of the trades are settled in Honey and the funding rates are paid out in Honey, you get this nice kind of, the closest comparison would be like UXD protocol. You get this nice kind of arbitrage opportunity where, when Honey is slightly below peg, there'll be a positive funding rate. So it's worth it for people to go and buy Honey because they'll get paid to do so via
So
Wow.
that
self-funding.
will that funding platform be on chain, or do you guys
Yep.
have something in mind? Is it like an Aave, or like how's that going to work? I would say.
Yeah, so the idea is that all of this is built into this core system. So it creates this nice benefit for users who are staked, is that users who are staked have, things to do once they're staked. So users that are staked can actually borrow Honey out of the system in a way kind of like DAI, like an
Oh,
over collateralized type platform. Users can also go and actually swap the assets that are staked without having to unstake. So if I go and stake a bunch of ETH, I can go and say, hey, I don't want to, have ETH exposure anymore. I can go and swap to AVAX or Bitcoin or something. Or additionally, the users can also utilize those as their stake balance as collateral to go purchase a perp as well. So it creates flexibility for people who are staked and kind of reduces the need or the want to ever unstake assets, because any
you can
individual
do
or even
everything.
large fund, or you can do everything you need, right, while staying staked. And then you combine all of this with liquid wrappers and stuff, and it can get really cool.
And
And obviously safety checks and stuff. But
how do you decide which assets get to be staked, like for block rewards?
yeah, so the idea is that we wanted to start from a safety perspective, start with kind of your blue chip L1 tokens, so things like AVAX, ETH, our token, of course, Bitcoin, things of the such. We also wanted to make sure that we incorporated popular stablecoins as well, especially in the bear market. Yeah, people want a safe way to get stable yield. So being able to have those included, we think is really important. And obviously, they're at you're going to get less block rewards from a stable coin than you will a volatile asset, just to keep the
And
incentives aligned there.
does
But
governance decide
additionally, like,
that, or the foundation will just decide that?
yeah, so to start, it'll be done by the foundation, but the plan is to shift to governance kind of after we get the chain into a stable state, economically speaking. The other thing that we're adding as well for protocols that we're onboarding under the chain and DeFi protocols in general, is that we want to have people that are in the ecosystem and building on the chain to have a vested interest in this system. So we want to allocate a section of block rewards and security to both up and coming and what we call kind of green chip tokens. So your things like Aave, Compound, Uni token, and also like ecosystem partners as well, to give them an opportunity to be able to kind of have a liquidity as a service type thing, because all their assets will get paired with Honey, but also be able to contribute to chain security through their assets and such. And we can really build this ecosystem where protocols really feel like they're a part of the base layer and really a part of the chain, as opposed to just building on the chain.
Wow.
So
Okay,
I think
so
that's cool.
to summarize so far, we already have like so much alpha. So I just wanted to go through it quickly. But basically, you'll be able to stake your assets like stablecoin, ETH, and other good things to farm Bera tokens. Then, on top of that, the chain is going to have some of the best liquidity in the game, because everything that's staked that's farming Bera is also providing liquidity. So that's number two. Then number three is CrocSwap and Perps are going to be launching like from the get-go. And then number four is number four is perp funding rates will arb, so more and more TVL will come just like within that flywheel. So that's amazing. Good shit, guys.
Yeah.
So
And
is
then
there other? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So then I wouldn't forget the last bit about being able to actually give protocols a reason to exist on
Oh,
the chain,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
There's so many of these like rotations where we hear about like, Vitalik chain one week and then Vitalik's mom chain the next week, and
Yes.
lighting the fuse and stuff, right? Where it's like you're playing Mad Libs with protocols, and it's like, here's my, my uni for X chain, or my balancer for Metis, and blah blah blah. And it's great to fill voids, but we also wanted protocols to have a reason to exist, to be a part of sticky liquidity, and to
Right.
drive value back to their token holders, right? Because we've seen so many of these situations where like governance tokens are just like down only sources of like, I'm going to do governance, and like now maybe I'm going to turn on a fee switch with this real yield narrative, and so on and so forth. But like there are so many cases where they don't actually provide value back to their users, and it's
Right.
like, ask not what you can do for your chain, ask what your chain can do for you. You know what I mean? So we also think that it's pretty exciting for those protocols that are serving as the largest parts of our ecosystem to be able to drive value back to their users and really have, a reason for them to exist there. So, that being able to stake that governance token and earn yield on it, whether that be the treasury or for someone in that eco, I think is pretty exciting to explore as well. And I don't think we've seen that done before.
Yeah, this is
You mentioned
genius.
you mentioned some of the green chips. Do you have any protocols that have agreed to build and that you're already working with, or I guess what's some of that lineup, if you can say any of the big protocols that you'll be working with already?
It's a pretty deep alpha on that one, sir. But what I
Of
can say is
course.
there's very there's active interest from everything across you sort of like your large blue chip DeFi protocols, to sort of your very large DAOs that may possess significant treasuries and the sort, that are trying to find ways to deploy both those stable or I'd say blue chip volatile assets and their own governance token. So that might give you a hint at the types that we're already talking to, but I can say that there's a lineup and it's competitive.
Okay, but you've already announced some, right? Like we know you just announced CrocSwap, so that's good. I've been in the Temple community, and those guys have already announced that they're somehow going to be working with you. There was like that Olympus grant, so I feel like that'll be pretty big. I saw Spaces with Synapse. What is there any we already know other than those
So
four?
I think with those ones, and it's all still up in the air in many of these cases who the actual consensus vault slash stakeable DeFi tokens will be,
Oh, okay,
right? Those are
right.
very much
Oh, so they're
in
going to
part.
come build there, but we don't know if their tokens will be stakeable to earn block rewards.
Correct.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
we actually don't know
So
when Crop token is going to exist, so I'm hoping soon. But I want a bunch, but still.
so
That's a good point.
what's the best way for everybody listening to kind of follow that narrative of see which protocols are going to be building there? And I look at it, hey, this is all pretty early, as far as like you're still talking about launching, talking about what your token will look like. So me trying to be early to as much as I possibly can, like I want to kind of follow some of those announcements of protocols to make sure that I can find different ways to get exposure to Berachain before you guys even launch. So would love to know like the best spots to check into that, whether it's your Twitter, Discord
Yeah.
announcements, like what that looks like.
I'd say keep an eye on our Discord. I think that, as we get closer to finalizing certain things, we'll definitely drop hints here and there. We want to be respectful, of course, of those communities that we partner with to make sure we're not saying anything, too out of time or ahead of comfort. But we'll do our best to
Right.
circulate the news when it's
Of course.
when it's viable.
Okay, and will you give different amounts of block rewards to different projects? Or is Ethereum gonna get more than like let's say some like smaller liquidity coin got? Or is it just like you're activated for staking rewards, come stake and they all get the same amount of the pool? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so the block rewards will very much be weighted depending on the token itself, right? So as
Okay,
Deadbear noted earlier, like you're going to earn less block rewards on a stable coin than you will on a volatile asset like Ethereum. And to
right.
some extent, that's because, of the degree of utilization of that pool and the amount of fees that'll be generated on it, right? It's also just like we have to make sure that from a security point of view, things are well in check, right? And it's like, okay, I can't have a random 50 mil cap coin having the same amount of weight as, Ethereum or something of the sort, right? So
Yeah.
there's a careful balancing act there. And I think that starts as a process where the foundation has a good amount of oversight, but over time becomes one that really is driven by governance and BGT on our end,
Yeah.
which means those users who are most vested and who are most, I'd say, fundamentally contributing to the Berachain ecosystem, in turn get the most say over which protocols are able to reap those benefits.
Okay. And you said some piece of these rewards are going to go to projects that come in and build there. So forget the ones that get to stake there, but you said, what can your blockchain do for you or whatever, right? How do you determine how much rewards those projects get? Like, do they need to come do biz dev with you? Or is it going to be like the like Phantom VE33 thing where you just have like a DeFi Llama page of TVL and the top TVL projects get shared it?
Well, on one hand, I think there actually is a quite a high possibility that there is a VE33 type project on Berachain. We're in discussion with a couple of different folks who are looking to do that, and
Damn,
there's
okay.
there's well north of 10 projects looking to
Amazing.
build on Terra. I'll tell you that. So I think there'll be some stiff competition there for who gets those slots. But what I meant is actually the groups that will be able to have their chain work for them, if you will, are those that will be voted into consensus. The thing is, it doesn't
Okay.
have to be a magic, like it doesn't have to be like, oh, you have 1% of consensus, right? It could be 0.1%, right? It could be a relatively small amount to start,
Mm-hmm.
and over time, as that group or as the supporters of that group, sort of gain in presence on the chain, as the TVL of that protocol rises, as its community becomes more rabid, what have you, they're able to gradually increase their weight. One of the things that we've even discussed down the road, and this is perhaps a little bit of an alpha leak, and it involves partners that you're probably very familiar with, DCF,
Let's go.
is something along the lines of within, I'd say, very safe margins and reason, consensus fault bribing. So
That's literally what I was gonna ask you next. Is like I like can project this into the future where we have like Hidden Hand launched and people are bribing Bera stakers to vote for them to get consensus rewards for their shitcoin, so then the numbers go up, so people can buy them to stake to get more consensus rewards. I freaking love it. I really hope that happens. Like an
and
entire
look,
chain bribed for on Hidden Hand. That would be awesome.
and
I
look, like
love that.
there's a way that it has to be done that is, I think a little bit more safety cognizant than one might have in,
Yeah, of
some
course.
classic curve/convex bribe systems, right? So there's no world in which it's like, 50% of block rewards are going to like Feetcoin, right? Like no. But there's perhaps a world in which it's, plus or minus 10% of the original allocate. Like, if a vault has 3%, then maybe there's a way that that goes to 3.5. You know what I mean?
Right.
Something within good
Yeah,
reason,
like a
but
boost or something like that.
yeah, but with security always is a primary concern, I think, for us, and making sure that those stay within reasonable ranges. But I think, when you look at that on a chain level, and especially on a chain that is, centered around liquidity as a core primitive, I think that those can really snowball pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that's also, not even taking into account the fees that people may be able to accrue by holding BGT, which is, a whole nother element of the system that's pretty fun.
Nice. Okay, and is the liquidity locked? Like, let's say I come stake my ETH for block rewards. Do I have to choose like, is it like Curve where I lock it for 4 years or something like that, or is it like I can remove as I want to remove?
So we're not looking at aggressive locks or anything curve style as of yet. We are considering manifestations that would involve short-term locks or something that allows your APY to ramp over a short period of time in a safe manner. That might basically allow for a greater degree of control from the chain. I'd say the chain's capital management side and the user side. But I don't think we're not trying to turn it into a curve-like system where we're just locking an unholy amount of capital and then letting the emissions do their thing over time.
I love that.
Respect what Curve has done a lot, but I just don't think that that's necessarily super sustainable from a chain level. If we're looking at something that's going to go on for 5, 10, what have you years, right?
Hmm. Nice. I think what I was trying to figure out there is like, I can understand the flywheel once the flywheel kickstarts, right? It's like there are block rewards, so you stake for them, so then there's more liquidity, so then there's more traders that come along, so there's more block rewards. Like that cycle works really well. How do you kick it off? Like, what does the first week of launch look like for you?
You kick it off I'd say by making sure that you do your homework, and I think that that's something that a lot of like ecosystems or chains haven't really done. Like we've talked about Evmos before, right? And look, I have infinite respect for what those guys brought into existence, and I have infinite respect for them as builders. I just think that when it came to activation energy, like shit really shit the bed there, right? Like,
Yeah.
and part of that for us is having conversations well ahead of time with institutional groups, with funds, with DAOs that are like, hey, I want to park like fucking 8 figures of capital on Berachain day one. I
Yeah.
want my,
That's
I
alpha
want my
work.
call, right? Like I want my call option on the ecosystem, right? Like there's an interesting duality about being bear smoking weed chain, but also running a hyper capital efficient system that has, basically the most core elements of Ethereum DeFi, rolled into one system, right? And packaged together incredibly efficiently and routed through a native stablecoin, right? So there's a lot of people who are understandably excited by that. And as a result, the way that we see it is activation energy is something that we solve for by getting a bunch of protocols over, bringing TVL on day one, and bringing people who want to stake day one. So that flywheel starts. There's one thing that we are considering as well, and that's just been because of the influx of interest that we've had, especially from the institutional side, around limiting to some extent certain vaults or certain deposits, just to make sure that the system is stable at first and then can basically rise to the degrees of capital that we'd like it to be. One example of groups that have done this well before is like the Umami vaults, right? Like they started with 3 million and they're scaling all the way up. I think that we may explore something similarly, and that may introduce an element of scarcity as well in kickstarting that flywheel. But that's more of a TBD, I'd say, within the next couple of weeks to couple of months.
Okay,
Really
so
how the
short
merge
answer.
works as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Short answer is Smokey's biz dev is better than yours, and I love that.
Oh, but so when you do bring up like security and like launching a brand new chain, like what have been your thoughts so far of working within the Cosmos ecosystem? I mean, I feel like Evmos had a little bit of a struggle. I feel like there's a lot of very legit protocols building there, but there's also been I would say some hiccups in the past. So like it sounds like you guys are doing a little bit more of I would say your due diligence ahead of time. But what do you say to some of the people I think are a little bit more skeptical out there on, I would say, like Cosmos due to things like UST and Evmos and some of the bridges that have failed and some of the staples that have failed there as well?
Yeah, I think the Cosmos ecosystem it spent a long time kind of going through this evolution process. So given how it started, it's really just been this iteration project, and it's just been going and going and going, and something that I don't think has seen that much real production usage until very recent. That being said, technologies like Tendermint we saw during the Luna escapade when they were having all of those, chain security issues when Luna went to zero. Tendermint was great, right? Tendermint, for
Yeah.
anyone who's not familiar, Tendermint is the consensus algorithm that is default shipped with Cosmos. And it's been, it really showed its colors, and you can see that even though it's been this long drawn out process, that piece of the tech stack didn't break.
Right.
The parts that broke were the application layer
Great.
stuff. And it's really, I think that is the kind of distinction between the people who are doing deep research, like those people at the Interchain Foundation, the researchers at Paradigm, things like that, who are really on to kind of the technical side and aren't as swaying by bull versus bear market, etc. They're just here to build and build things properly. Versus I feel like sometimes a lot of projects were just eager to ship, eager to push things out, not necessarily following like good software engineering practices. And that can lead to a lot of these problems, like you saw with Evmos, right, where they had the chain halt because of, somebody didn't realize that they made a state-breaking change, and had there been, proper integration testing, or regression testing or any of that stuff like that would have been caught. So the analogy that I always really like to use is that the space, especially Cosmos, has a lot of really, really smart people that can't code. That's kind of how the joke, the running joke that I go with. And I think it's just because not a lot of people have had, corporate software engineering experience. And that's what I'm really excited about with Web3 getting more mainstream, is that you're starting to see people from, people who worked at Facebook, people who've spent time on Wall Street, people who've, ran a startup for, 5, 6, 7 years and have been big into that side and have this deep breadth of software engineering experience get involved. Because even over the past 3, 4 months, I've started to see that the tooling and kind of the software engineering practices in the space are really improving. So I think as we see the tech get more commercialized and less kind of hackathon project-y, things will be better overall. So
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm personally like I'm bullish on Atom. I was on Osmo since day one. I still stake Atom. I still stake Osmo. I've talked about AKT a bunch of times, and one of the things I feel like I've seen is just every project really starts with an airdrop, because I mean you really need to get the gas token out there, because every project is technically really its own chain. But with that, like I think a lot of projects run into supply issues. I would say somewhat early on, because they haven't done some of that due diligence up front. They kind of dump like an airdrop on everybody. It like trends towards zero, and like it is a mental thing when projects just like you don't see the price going up for a while. Like a lot less likely to build a community and hold for those reasons. So like excited to hear that you guys are going that route. And like honestly, I think there is going to be a time here in the next, I would say, year or two, when like some of the dilution issues that like I've seen on Atom like take a turn, and the tech's like just going to be far more well built than a lot of other places, and it's going to have a lot more staying power. So I'm super excited for this, and like I think you guys are kind of going about it the right way with planning, get some of the capital up front, making sure you're getting the right people involved, and incentivizing or making people earn the token through really
yeah, it's a
incentivized
thing like
ways.
if you're really trying to build a project that you want to have staying power and be there for like the long term, it's really easy to build and it's really easy to set things up well before you've launched. Once you've launched, it's, that's when
Possible.
you run into not even just problems from like a narrative perspective, but even technical problems, right? Now you have a state that you have to keep track of. Making API breaking changes is harder, and you really just can't set up things the way that you want to. It's kind of once you launch, there's no going back, sort of. So my goal every day is just make sure that like when we hit the go live button, that I can go to bed at night and worry nothing's gonna break. Everything's so tested and gone through so much revision, and just it's gonna be solid. So um, having that stronger UX and just having a chain where people put it in their MetaMask and it just works, it literally is like the number one KPI for us. And at the end of the day, people need to have a good experience. And if that means taking a few extra months to build it, then I'd rather release a product that is polished and finished and professional than something that's kind of like, yeah, maybe this works, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's testnet look like? And since you brought that up, like I mean, like how are you guys going about that process? Can projects get involved? Can users like myself and DCF get involved and kind of test things out earlier? Like how's that work?
So right now we're at
I'll
a. Oh,
oh, sorry, go
sorry,
ahead,
go
Dad.
ahead. Yeah, I was gonna say. So right now we have for any developers or builders in the audience, we have a fully working binary that we can share with people, that you can run kind of on your local machine and start playing around with some of the features there. So if anyone or any protocol engineers in the audience are interested in building with Bera, definitely shoot Smokey or I a message and we can get you sorted there. And then kind of how, as we get more towards feature completeness, we'll be kind of talking. We've been talking with some validator shops and of the like to get a full testnet sorted there. And we've been working with our lead RPC provider and partner Anchor so that we can have a nice
Damn.
decentralized RPC
It's awesome.
infrastructure.
Another biz dever. Good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have that up and running in the not too distant future. Won't commit to exact timelines as of yet, but what I would say is that if you guys want to keep a good pulse on what's happening testnet wise, we'll probably be doing the majority of updates and also pushing information about how to get eligible for early access in the Discord. So we'll be definitely circulating that sort of information, and of course the testnet itself will be incentivized. We'll be seeing about working with groups, like your layer 3/rabbit holes, etc., to make sure that there are effective bounties/quests that
Boom.
people can basically use to figure out how to explore the chain, right? And that way we really want people to have an opportunity to try out all the different features, because I think that there's perhaps more to do on Berachain day one just from like its native feature set than some ecosystems on day one. So we want to have people trying out the perps, trying out the swaps, like recomposing their positions and so on and so forth. So there'll be a lot of different ways to get involved there. And yeah, I would reiterate what DevBear said. If you're interested in building on Bera, there'll be a couple of different ways. One is, of course, checking out the DevNet. Two is, we're going to be hosting hackathons that'll be, publicly announced relatively soon with a couple of our favorite, creator DAOs/builder groups. So, with those around the corner, if you're interested in building, hit me up and we'll get you in touch with the right people.
Damn.
Awesome.
Yeah, okay. So I feel like we need another pause and just go over all that alpha again. So there's a bunch of things there. Going way back, one of the big things was when you were talking about staking, it's a lot more than just staking, but there'll be native asset swaps between staked assets. So you don't have to unstake. I think that's huge. The other one was you said lending. So you'll be able to borrow honey against what's staked, and that will be like built into the chain, or is that like Avi or someone has to come along provide it?
So that's built into the chain and is all
Nice.
all tied in. So
Okay, so you have lending built in, and I imagine when you borrow, you pay fees, and those fees go towards like part of block rewards for holding Bera tokens. Then there was the whole like builders will get a piece of it, and then alpha will be incentivized. So if you come use the alpha testnet later, you'll be able to earn Bera tokens. So I would advise everyone get onto the Discord and keep up with all this news, because there's definitely a huge opportunity there. So now for the next section, we want to talk about like the real alpha. So what is going on with these NFTs? Like you guys started as some JPEGs of bears smoking bongs, and then this turned into this whole blockchain. Like how does the NFT relate to the blockchain itself?
Good JPEGs.
Good JPEGs.
Good JPEGs. That's all I can say.
That's all you can say. All right. So rumor has it that, of course, the NFTs themselves will have some, maybe not some value, but they'll have some importance in the chain. So I did want to bring up the NFTs themselves. Like you guys started with the OG bears, and then on the screen I've just brought up your Discord where you have links to all of the rebases. But how it worked is you have the OG bears, and then each OG bear got a bond bear, and then each bond bear and OG bear got a boo bear. Then each boo bear, bond bear, and OG bear got a baby bear, and so on and so forth. So do you still see these as like the OG bears are the most important and the final rebase is probably the least important? Not value, just important in your minds?
I don't know. The OG Bears have a special place in our hearts, I suppose.
Oh
But
yeah, okay.
we love the Bears equally, if you will. Like one bear equals one bear. But I think one of the sayings that we've had for a while was it was time in beras over timing beras.
Right.
So I don't know. I think that there's a lot to be appreciated from both sides, and I also think that the last rebase could have some really interesting stuff around it in terms of what it might imply eligibility for, or perhaps access to different resources. I think that there's stuff that's still up in the air there, so we'll have to see.
Okay. And when you say last rebase, you mean the rebase that hasn't happened yet, right? So rebase number 5.
Correct, and there's probably there'll be a last rebase before like the chain launches, and then there'll also
Okay.
be I think at least one or two more on the chain itself. So we'll hopefully get some pseudo pools going for those. We'll get
Amazing.
some liquidity flowing around and have some bears on Berachain. And of course, there's actually already NFT marketplaces that are looking to launch with us as well, along with a good amount of NFT infrastructure. So the guys at Abacus and Putty and Gasoline and so on and so forth.
Oh, wow.
We'll be making the trip over.
Boom. That's some more protocols just announced already on Berachain, so that's sick. Um, okay, I like that. So fifth rebase hasn't happened yet. You guys care about the fifth rebase. Every single holder of all of the NFTs will get the fifth rebase, right? It's not just band bears, like babies, boos, and OGs will get the two.
Yep, they all go end to end.
Okay, sick. Um, and you haven't announced any details for how many tokens or anything like that each one gets, but community members have made rumors. So if people are interested, just check Discord and talk to the community members. But there might be options there. I love that. Okay, and so if I want exposure to Berachain, what's the best way to get it?
I'd say just pay attention and get involved. I think,
Okay.
in the near future, we might do stuff like we might do some of these, I'd say more community engagement / content type things where,
Mm-hmm.
if people are helping with putting out some educational stuff, whether that be graphics or threaders or so on and so forth, maybe there'll be a small portion of rewards and or an airdrop that will go towards, community initiatives, if you will.
Okay.
But I think beyond that, it'll be keeping an eye on some of the projects that we end up working with
Smart.
as basically consensus vault members. It'll be about making sure that you're quick to get access to the testnet,
Mm-hmm.
because logically the way I see it is that the earlier that one's on the testnet, the more opportunities that one might have to basically stack potential tokens. Um, and yeah, and then of course when it comes to actual launch, make sure you buy your Bera tokens.
Boom. Okay. And did you fundraise, or is there any info on that yet?
Yeah, yeah. So we fundraised a few months ago. Good number, nice round number, and got a number of folks that you guys would recognize involved, including you, DCF.
Let's
Might have
go.
forgotten,
Don't worry, I
but
didn't forget.
I'm just messing with you. We haven't publicly announced a ton about that as of yet, but I'd say in the weeks to come, keep an eye out, and you might see some a press announcement with some nice round numbers.
Boom. I love it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And when launch? Or you don't know yet?
Launch soon. I think if I had to give an answer, I'd say that we're looking at our test net not too far away. So let's say within. I'll tease people by saying that it'll be within the quarter, and that's not to say the end of this quarter, but within a quarter from now. And I'd say that mainnet is feasible by early next year. Could be sooner, could be later. But we want to make sure, as DevBear said, that we do it right and that we set ourselves up for the maximum amount of success and minimum friction. I think that we've seen a lot of experiments recently where stuff was just kind of yeeted, and we want to learn from those who came before us, and take away as much as we can to move forward.
Nice. Okay, I like it. And before I got on this call, I heard, well, while I was sending all the video, Small Cap was talking to you guys, and I overheard him talking about real yield or GMX. Do you want to just dive into that a little bit? Like, if I'm holding a Bera token, is my yields just emissions from block rewards, or am I making money off the lending pool? Am I making money off the AMM swaps? Like, how do I think about that, and what's the reason for me to buy and hold a Bera token apart from I think number go up?
Oh, great question. DevBear, you wanna tell them about the magic of BGT?
Let's
I can
go.
hit them with this one. Yeah. So as part of the BGT system, you'll be able to basically all of the users in the system will basically any profit that the system gets is basically distributed out to users. And we've been in contact with our legal counsel and stuff, and we've kind of figured out a way to do it in a way that we think is really safe. And is almost the way that we describe it is that you're getting paid for your service of contributing to governance and contributing to the security of the chain. So that's really, really nice. But you'll effectively be able to get paid out directly in Honey. So you're getting
Oh, so you get
not
paid in
just
the
block
stable.
reward,
Stable.
but you
That's
get paid in
nice.
stables. Yeah, so you'll be basically able to farm both the block rewards, and then also you'll be getting paid out in stables as well.
Nice.
So that's really nice because it's people just love getting paid in stables, right?
Yeah.
It's not a bad place to be. So
And block rewards are like
yeah,
predictable, so I can know like if I stake this much BG Bearer tokens, then over this much time I expect this much inflation to be given to the staking pool, and then on top of that, the honey payout is unpredictable depending on like swap volumes and borrowing and things like that. Is that how I should
exactly.
think
So
about
it's
it?
like
Okay.
you're getting a predictable yield and then a variable yield. So
Right. Damn, that's really cool. And is the honey gonna do any like sort of Ponzi stuff, like buy back and burn and whatnot, or it's just straight honey and then as a user I can decide if I want to use that honey to buy back BGT or not?
exactly. So it's
Okay.
really we wanted to give users the most liquid asset in our system, right? So since everything in our native DEX is tied through Honey, we don't know what users want. Maybe they want BGT, maybe they want Bera, maybe they want Bitcoin. We have no idea. So
Right.
we just give them the medium of exchange token, and then it's up to them to decide what they want.
Okay. And are
So
BGT and Bera different things? It's just one, right?
So that's
yeah,
the
so
one
you
of
can.
Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Sorry,
Deb.
go ahead. I was gonna say, so you earn BGT over time by effectively having Bera staked. So
Oh,
it's kind
okay.
of a time in Bera is more important than timing Bera. Going back to our what Smokey said about the Bong Bear / Ohm saying.
Okay, and they're
So it's
both
really about
liquid. So I buy Bera, I stake it, and I earn BGT. And then I stake BGT and I earn honey.
So you can think about it as so going back to kind of the legality stuff that we talked about before. I can't go into too much detail of it,
Okay.
but a big part of that is that BGT, as it stands today, is not liquid.
Okay.
So it's something that you earn, and it's kind of a weighting, a points, however you want to think about it,
Oh, it's like
an
VE hum or
attribute.
some shit like that. Or like
Yeah,
VETTP.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, I
Exactly. So
understand.
we don't want it to be transferable. A, for legal reasons, we've been advised that it's better.
Yeah.
And then B, we've seen a lot of these gov tokens kind of have interesting price dynamic. Obviously, because ours is yield generating, it's a little different, but we feel that the way governance has been handled in the past with these liquid gov tokens is just the incorrect way to do it. And I think a lot of people are starting to experiment more with alternative governance schemes.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that having governance as not just a function of how much capital you have, but how long said capital has been staked and how long you've contributed to the ecosystem is really important from an aligned incentives perspective. And then also making sure that the people who really care and have been there for a long time can't just have someone come in and buy a ton and sway things.
Right.
Yeah, that's a interesting concept. Like, I mean, now that you say it, I think I agree. Like, I don't really know too many projects going down that route though. So I think it's a good alternative to the way things have gone. People don't want to hold governance tokens and stay involved in things if they know the price of it's going to go down.
It's
But
our
also,
mechanism so that we can get our reward.
that's it.
Yeah, it's about rewarding those users for participating in
Yeah.
governance, and that's what that those honey rewards are from. But then not associating a price necessarily to that governance power, so that you don't have this this weird dynamic where people don't want to participate in governance because price going down, right? Versus like,
Right.
what, there is no price to this, so I might as well,
Yeah.
because if I participate in governance I get more honey yield. So
So there's
I
no
mean,
way for me to buy a BGT. The only way for me to get a BGT is to stake a Bera token.
okay.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. And govern
is
and
is there a way to? Oh,
sorry.
just real quick on that. Is there a way to
Yeah.
block that liquid market? Like, are you gonna like? I mean, can someone just go and make a pool somewhere else for BGT? Um, just
No, so
thinking.
BGT is not in the current implementation. It's not an ERC20.
Okay.
It's the current implementation right now is it's actually a 721. A little bit of an alpha leak there for anyone
Oh
who knows
wow.
what a 721 is.
Yeah.
Isn't that an
So that may
NFT?
or may not have, it may or may not have
Mm.
something to do with said rebases that Smokey was talking
Oh,
about.
let's go.
Oh,
Yeah,
there it
Wow.
yeah,
comes. Just keep
Okay.
prying, and
so
eventually we'll get it out.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it may or may not have something to do with that. But yeah, it's a way for us to challenge the governance model. It clearly hasn't been working the current statute of things. So we're trying something new, and we think that having it more of a function of how invested over time you are in the ecosystem will be you'll get the right actors at the table.
Okay. And if I
I feel like
unstake my Bera, does it burn all my BGT? Or can I like buy Bera, stake it for a bit, sell my Bera, and now forever keep earning rewards because the BGT is not transferable but staked to me?
You're
So it's
either
all
on the
based.
team or off it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's you lose your BGT if you do
Oh,
that.
okay, nice. So it's very similar to Platypus. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
it's like almost like a soulbound token. Like it's a happy
Yeah,
medium because they have to
yeah.
be around for a very long time. You kind of get to know like your long-term governance, like users and who's actually like working on the protocol. So like I mean, I think that's a very good model, and I mean, it's something that I think a lot of crypto is moving towards. So
And
and
good
it's
stuff.
also
And
it's also aligned to where it's like driving actual value, right? Because in the long run, we want Berachain to be able to have liquidity pools that are deep enough that we serve as a cross-chain router of sorts, right? Like we want to be able to have people swapping through 1inch or 0x or whatever, and it routing through Berachain, and then being able to drive those fees back to people within our ecosystem, right? So if that's done correctly, what you're getting upside in by holding BGT is really, I think, like a function of the network's efficiency and the network's volume over time, which also makes it pretty sustainable as opposed to just like, sort of weird inflationary Ponzi games.
right. Okay, one request. The seed investor tokens should be staked while vesting. Thank you.
No bias involved in that one.
No bias at all, but I just really think that's a good
absolutely
idea.
none.
I love it. Damn, guys, that was awesome. I think we're starting to run low on time. But I did want to ask you guys, first, small cap, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, this has been great. I think we got a ton of alpha out of this. I'm
Yeah, that was a
excited to.
freaking amazing episode. But just quickly, I just wanted to say that I think you guys have one of the best communities that I've ever seen. Like as we've been building out an ADA, or even when other people come and ask me for advice about building their community, I always say go look at Bera's. Like Smokey, you're in every single Discord, and you're just like dragging people back into the Berachain ecosystem, and I just love it. One of my favorite things, like everywhere I go, I always find some Bera community member just like being hilarious, like all the way from that guy like Ohm, local Bera, like he's awesome. You have people making crazy videos all the time. They're always making me laugh. Even like memes, that guy Socrates and like the Rome one, he's a Bera guy. So really good work on the community poker tournaments, all that stuff.
Just this
So
Twitch chat.
yeah.
This
Yeah.
Twitch chat
Even this
people
Twitch
have been
chat, they won't
going
shut
up.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just keep
Yeah.
saying Bear, Bear,
Uh,
BGT. It's not real
yeah.
psyops. Like so
Honey is
good.
money. Like
It's so
Yeah,
honey
good.
I
is
think the
money
big
500 times.
I
It's
think,
impressive.
yeah, I think the big thing is just like, being genuine, right? Like
Yeah.
I make a big, like I really make sure I make time to like go in VC and spend time. Like, I mean, a lot of the bears in the chat are probably going to say this, but pretty much every night I'll make sure to get on and play video games and stuff for an hour. And, people come in and ask questions and stuff. So that's really where the real alpha leaks. Like we said some alpha today, but the real alpha is like 2 a.m. when I'm playing Warzone, just
Let's
saying
go.
stuff because my brain's turned off.
That's
But
amazing.
it's just really, it's about building, like, it's like, it's about making friends and,
Yeah.
building a community and an ecosystem of people that you want to hang out with, right? So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, you have to have people that support you and you have to, support them too. So, that's it's
Yeah.
kind of as simple as that. You build a community people want to spend time in with, and why do you think everyone, when growing up, kids always hung out on one of those electrical boxes at the
Yeah.
corner or at the convenience store? So
Yeah.
it's the same. I see it as the same thing. So that's where we think Berachain can really take that to the next level, where we don't only have this really nice community, but we also give them a place to
Yes.
build and grow and
That's
learn
what I
from.
was, yeah, I was hoping you'd bring it up a little bit more in the earlier section about like why Berachain will work. I think a huge piece is you don't even have the chain and you already have tons of users. Like all these people want to be on Bera. Like usually it's like, oh, because all these people hold this token, they all collectively want the number to go up. So they all shill it. So it looks like there's community, even though there might not be. But here there's like literally nothing for them to shill and they're obsessed with it. So it's like super unique. Your community is top tier. Obviously, your guys' biz dev is really good. The liquidity and the technicals sound like way too smart for even us to comprehend. So good job there. It's rare to see a team that has it all. So props to you guys on that. And thanks for coming on our show. We just like to end it off with like one question for both of you. Let's say like you weren't working on Bera at all, and you're in crypto today, and you both have like different skill sets. One of you is really good at biz dev, one of you is like really good at technicals. Like what would you be aping? What should people be looking at? What gets you excited outside of the Berachain ecosystem?
That's a good question. I am a honey maximalist, but
Oh,
I think
okay.
I think that if I
Addicted to
had to,
honey.
yeah, man, honey is money. I'm loyal to it. I think that one of the ones I'd probably be most excited about is like, and this won't come as a huge surprise, but I'm super bullish on the team at Butterfly and Redacted. I think they're doing
Nice.
super cool stuff.
Real yield.
And yeah,
Sounds like a
like
partner. Sounds like
I
a partner.
hint, hint,
We'll
nudge,
see.
nudge. Like I think that people who are embedding themselves as an infrastructure layer, make a lot of sense. And I think that Redacted has done a wonderful job of basically, turning themselves into the infrastructure layer for vote locking slash bribing a number of different cases and building around that. So and they don't seem to be stopping, and they have
Yes.
sort of good support from the New Order as well, sort of like as a I guess a sister to some extent, right? So yeah, I think those guys are awesome, and I'd be curious to see where they go. And the only other thing that I would take a look at, or I'd explore seriously, is probably like the fixed rate, a real like off-chain asset type stuff. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like like your Maple Finance slash Goldfinch types, where they're basically taking crypto assets and being able to arbitrage their velocity slash ease of access to power microfinance and lending and so on and so forth in the real world, and driving like more meaningful yields as a result of that. Both of those are very cool, and I'd like to find a way to integrate more of the latter into Berachain as we go, and evolve.
If you like Maple, just like me passing something to you is like you should really take a look at Fiat DAO. I've
Oh,
recently met with their team and they're doing some very similar stuff on some fixed products like in
Go ahead and
putting a
stand up.
stable coin over top to
Sorry.
collateralize it. It's pretty
they
awesome.
they may or may not be one of the first folks that I chatted with about launching on
There
Bear.
you
So
go. There you go. Pulling
Whoa.
them out. That
You
makes
said
sense.
it. You said it.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Smokey stole mine. That's what I was gonna say real world stuff. So like anything that's doing even synthetics protocols that are taking real world assets and giving users like price discovery on them is
Yeah.
really cool. I think like projects that I'm bullish on and tokens that I would ape. I don't have a specific one in mind because Smokey stole mine. But I would see it as protocols that are really trying to cater to more than just people on CT. I
Hmm.
think long term, like CT will forever be around, but I think a lot of people like forget, and we were even guilty of this, especially in the beginning, forget that like normies exist, like people who don't know what crypto Twitter is, people who like barely know how to use MetaMask. Those people exist, and those people often have a lot of money and time. So I think protocols that can really find a way to capture the attention span of people who aren't refreshing Twitter every 20 seconds. I think if you combine a protocol like that that's able to provide real yield and cater it to kind of non-CT people, I think if you find a protocol like that and there's a really strong team behind it, that it is definitely a good place to be putting your money.
Damn.
I
That's
mean,
great answers from
I
both of
think
you.
I think you guys nail that though,
Yeah.
because like where do those people coming in normally start? Like, I mean, if a normal person or a normie comes and listens directly to market capping, like sometimes we're way too in the weeds and it sounds like honestly a different
Exactly.
language.
Yeah.
But if you
Literally.
have like where that money normally flows into is the memes. Like it flows into the memes first. That's how they get hooked. That those communities that are very strong teach them how to use crypto, MetaMask, like Web3, and then from there they end up being like super involved community members. But you guys are really nailing that narrative with kind of the Berachain, the memes. Like that's like exactly how you onboard those type of people. So I mean, I think you guys are
I'll
honestly
take it.
crushing that. Yeah.
I think there's also like a lot of like not even this is kind of breaching off of things to ape into, but a lot of projects that could abstract away the concept of crypto, but still kind of allow users to have exposure. So not in like a CeFi way, but like in a way where if you had some sort of project that earns ERC20 tokens, but it's not a crypto thing. It's just maybe it's a game or maybe it's some passive investing thing like acorns or something like that where users are earning yield in crypto tokens like in honey maybe or dai. That wasn't an alpha leak, it was just an example. But able
Yeah.
to like learn about crypto through a non-crypto thing, because I think one of the criticisms that a lot of non-crypto people have is they're like, oh, like crypto's a scam, crypto's this, there's nothing to do with it, right? But if you're able to introduce them into crypto in a medium that's not necessarily crypto focused, but is has a kind of you sucker them in, I guess, via something that they enjoy doing or has really world utility as a productivity app or something. Stepin's a really good example of this. I think long term that will be a really good way to get people into crypto who aren't in crypto. And I would be bullish on anything like
Yeah,
that too.
I totally agree. Like, I think over the coming years, like the next step is everyone's going to build apps and people are just going to use them like apps. And then they're going to find out later,
Exactly.
like, psych, it was all crypto. And they're going to be like, oh, what the fuck? And they're not going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a crypto trader or some shit like that. They're going to just be like, oh, I sent money to my friend. And on the back end, crypto's going to be
Yep.
used and they won't even know.
Yeah, that's the end state. Is
Yeah.
that you said it perfect. We know blockchains made it when people don't know they're using blockchain. Just like we know HTTP made it because nobody
Yeah,
knows they're using HTTP.
exactly.
We're just on a phone
Yeah,
call. Right? Same
Amazing.
game.
very true.
Cool, guys. Appreciate the
Cool.
time. Just one last thing before we end the show. A reminder for all the Anita fam that breeding is happening right now. So if you have an Anita NFT, you should go to the website and you should click the big breeding button and find someone to breed with. And you will get airdropped a chibi, which is a combination of your Anita and the one you breed with. You can breed with honoraries. If anyone's looking for a mate, I have a bunch that haven't mated yet, so just like hit me up in the breeding channel on Discord, and I'll mate with you in case you might just have one, and you can't find another friend. I also, if you have more than one, I wouldn't breed with yourself, even though you can, because then you're just going to get two of a similar chibi. It's better to find a friend to breed with, so then you guys get one of each other's, so you get a nice diversity of chibis. And if you want to see a cool example of what the chibis will look like, I recommend hitting up our Twitter and watching this video here. This may say video. I think it's higher up too. No, it's just here. Over here, and in the middle, you can see the Waifu King's Dragon Chibi. It's like really cool, face tracking, hand tracking, crazy emotes, and all that kind of stuff. So that's the update from Manita. That was Berachain. Hope you guys loved it.
It was-
Definitely one of my favorite episodes. Really appreciate having you guys.
It was. We almost stayed on time this time too.
Yeah,
Make
we
sure
did.
make sure you follow Berachain on Twitter. Join the
Yep.
Discord. Maybe watch some more Zone. Seems that's where the real alpha is. If we're not the ones pulling it out of them. Also, feel free to give us a follow here on Market Capping. It's always
All right.
appreciated.
I'm gonna hit the stop button. Peace, y'all.